Jawan Jennings, you might want to pay attention to this episode. What's up? Welcome to 49ers on SI TV. We're your host, Grant Cohn, Parker Hurley. Parker Hurley is a writer for 49ers on SI, along with me and Jose Sanchez and Connor Wayland. Parker, thank you very much for coming on the show. Why don't you tell the good people watching who you are, a little bit about you?
Right. Like you said, first off, happy to be here. Excited to join you. I'm based out of Pittsburgh, but I've been writing about the 49ers since July. Like me and Grant talked about, I think my idea is that I'm going to give it to you straight, not the home team analysis. The fact of I like to watch all 32 NFL teams, and I like to give it to you from that big picture perspective. So that's the angle I'm coming from. Every once in a while, I may tie in some Pittsburgh ties for some 49ers fans, but that's who I am, and I'm excited to talk about 49ers with you.
Yeah, Parker writes about 2 articles a day generally for 49ers on SI. They're excellent. I learn from them. You should check them out. 49ers on SI. We also have a Facebook page, all 49ers, and on Twitter and stuff. So here, first question for you. Can the Niners fix their biggest issue at the bye week? What would you say their biggest issue is?
I think a lot of people would say the defense right now, but one of the things that me and you were talking about is that when you're Kyle Shanahan, your thought is that I could have the best offense in the NFL, and if the defense is just good enough, we could, arguably win the Super Bowl, get to the Super Bowl. That's what he's been able to do. Where I stand right now is I don't think the offense is necessarily good enough. The defense, can they be good enough? Yeah, they can be good enough. The offense needs to be the elite unit if they want to win the Super Bowl. And I wrote about it on SI.com. You can check it out. That Marcus Mosher posted it. He's on Twitter. He posted that the 49ers are like 25th in the NFL in terms of explosive plays. And the offense is good. They stay on schedule. Like I said, Shanahan draws up great plays, but they don't have that explosive play element to them right now. And when you look at the top teams in the NFL in explosive plays, you see the Rams, the Seahawks, the Packers, teams that in the NFC you say, these are probably the teams that have better odds than the 49ers. These are teams most people think are better than the 49ers. It's because they're able to create those explosive plays. You look, the Bills have explosive plays. The Chiefs, they're 6-6, but they're getting explosive plays. That's why people still think at 6-6, the Chiefs are contenders, because their offense can take it to that level. Seems like the 49ers right now, they can't. Can they fix that at the bye week? It seems like, with Purdy getting healthy, with Pearsall getting healthy, with the bye week, can they do that?
See, what's interesting to me is that this has been an issue all year long. And I feel like the team and maybe the fan base wanted someone to blame for it when I think it's pretty obvious what the issues is. And I think they put it on Mac Jones. And there was that one clip of him not throwing to Demarcus Robinson down the field when he was open. It was like, see, this is the problem. Right. We got to get Brock back in there. And so Brock's back in there, and he's doing the thing where he scrambles and extends the play and looks to push it down the field, which we love. But the only problem is when he's looking down the field, he doesn't see Brandon Aiyuk. He doesn't see Deebo Samuel. Those are your explosive players. He sees Jawan Jennings. So he's throwing like a 15-yard contested pass. I think the problem here is that they got rid of these 2 wide receivers. They banked a lot on Christian McCaffrey, who's having a very good season, but he's not explosive anymore.
Right.
And Ricky Pearsall has been such a disappointment. He was balling for a month. His knee banged the turf. And he hasn't done anything since. I don't understand, but the Ricky Pearsall story has been one of the bigger stories of the year. Also, the complete annihilation of the relationship with Brandon Aiyuk for dubious reasons is another one.
Right. And I mainly, when I'm thinking of the bye week, I'm thinking of Ricky Pearsall here of, like you said, he had those first 4 weeks, the offense had that explosive element because it was, let's just throw it up to Ricky. I think it was through 4 weeks, it was Puka, JSN, and then Ricky. These were the top 3 receivers in yards. He was getting big plays every single week. He was, whether it was Mac Jones, whether it was Purdy, he was doing it with both of them. All of a sudden, he misses all of this time. It's like you said, whether it's Demarcus Robinson, Jawan Jennings has never been a stretch the field guy. He's, they call him third and Jawan because, he gets that, 3rd and 4, he'll get 5 sort of thing. That's exactly what you want from him. Ricky Pearsall is the guy who's supposed to get that 20. He's supposed to, or like you said, Aiyuk, obviously, but that isn't going to happen Probably not, or it's not going to get fixed at the bye week. What can get fixed at the bye week is Aiyuk or Pearsall. You had a few weeks, you shook some rust off. It Whatever happened in those few weeks didn't happen. Nothing happened in those few weeks. You have a week to reset. You have a week to spend some time with Brock, get on the same page. But if he doesn't come out and create those explosive plays, like you said, McCaffrey, who's going to give it to you? I don't think there's anyone on the 49ers that can push them over the ceiling offensively.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, like they have a lot of issues. You thought it would come down to their defense. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but really the biggest issue to me right now is Ricky Pearsall. Where are you? You are MIA. Brandon Aiyuk is not walking through that door. It's 100% on you because it's not going to be Kendrick Bourne or Jawan Jennings. George Kittle is explosive for a tight end, but he can't stretch the field on the perimeter like that.
Right.
I do think it's interesting that the 49ers took such a hard line with Brandon Aiyuk, and maybe they were justified. But I think part of the reason they did it back in July is they had such high hopes for Ricky. And now, I mean, remember after their last loss against the Rams, Kittle comes out after the game. He's like, "Look," no, I asked him, like, "Do you still have Super Bowl aspirations?" I forget how I phrased it. And he was like, "Yeah, I mean, our offense is going to be so good." And he listed reasons why. Brock's coming back, Ricky's coming back, and he said, hopefully Brandon too. If they were going to be that kind of an offense, like they thought, where they could like be elite, it would have to have Brandon Aiyuk. And I mean, the Niners are acting like they still want him, and they had no choice but to take his, to void the guarantees in his contract, and they still hope he's coming back. Man, here's how you bring him back: give him the guarantees back, or some. It's not a hope; it's a negotiation. It's business. If you want him that bad, if you think he's the different, I mean, let's say they go to the NFC Championship. I don't know if they'll make it that far, and
Right.
they lose by 3. I mean, can't you point to this and be like, well, damn, if they had Brandon Aiyuk, maybe they win.
Especially, I mean, what week do you, I mean, this is getting into speculation and all that, but what week do you think he could have came back if, he was on full track? Would he have been back for 2 or 3 weeks by now? That's the argument of, how soon would he have been back? And like you said, we don't know the whole story. We don't know whose side is what. We do know that, yeah, he voided the guarantees and he's essentially stopped showing up. It just doesn't seem like he's going to be a part of the team this year. And like you
No.
said, that's where I say that when you look at the pieces and you say, man, if Ricky's going deep and Jawan's getting those 3rd and 4s and converting them, and Kittle's a blocker and he can catch, and then you have Aiyuk over the top, then you say, I don't care how bad the defense is, or I don't care if the defense gets us into a shootout. We can do this with every team. When you say without Aiyuk, and you're saying, okay, that's already, now you need Pearsall to be, like I said, the next JSN, breakout. Oh, I can't believe this. If he does that, you're saying, okay, that's incredible. But without that, the offense doesn't have the necessary, tools. They will have to play that hog the football, 3 plays, convert, 3 plays, convert. We take 8-minute, 9-minute drives down the field. That's the only way this offense can win right now. And it takes so many plays without a mistake. And when you have Purdy, right now making all the mistakes that he's making, you can't win that way. So
See, I want to say something before I move on because we just really dumped on Ricky, and Ricky clearly watches the show. Big fan, love you, Ricky. Maybe let me try to like see it from a different perspective as Ricky's attorney now. Maybe it's not. Is it definitely Ricky's fault? Like Ricky is a very specific type of wide receiver, down the field, and is it a coincidence? The quarterback right now isn't throwing down the field so well. They tried to get it down the field against Carolina. Every time it was a pick. And a lot of those passes were intended for Ricky. So maybe from Ricky's perspective, like, hey, man, like, I'm getting open down the field. The quarterback just can't get it to me right now. Is it possible it's a little, well, it was hard to tell in the wind in Cleveland. I guess we'll
right.
find out against Tennessee.
That's the other thing. And, to give Ricky a ton of credit too is, he's recovering from a PCL injury and he's only 2 games back. We can't just bury the grave on him for that. He's got 4 games and but I think the idea is that without him it's so hard to see the future. It's not saying, oh, he hasn't done anything and they're going to fail. It's okay. If he steps up, wow, this offense could really take that step. But I agree. And another shameless plug real quick is that I wrote an article that Brock Purdy is one of the worst quarterbacks right now when it comes to holding the football for 2.5 seconds or longer. I think it's 0 touchdowns, 7 interceptions right now when he holds the football for 2.5 seconds or longer. And most of that is when he's doing that, he's rolling out of the pocket, pushing the ball down the field. So, if Purdy gets better in those situations and you see, plenty of other quarterbacks can hold the ball for 2.5 seconds, but when they're making those passes down the field, it obviously is hitting. So yes, Ricky Pearsall needs to, one, get healthy, two, get on the same page, but two, obviously Brock Purdy needs to start performing better down the field.
Last week, and we'll move on in a second. Last week, I did a couple of days ago, I did a stream saying the Niners are Super Bowl contenders, and the only reason I said that is like not because they beat Cleveland, but it's because the Rams lost to Carolina, and I just feel like this whole season is a mid off in the NFL, and there is no great team, and so to me, like what would really put the Niners into real contention is if Ricky Pearsall could regain the form he had the first 3-4 weeks of the season. If he becomes that player again, all of a sudden it's like, okay, now this Niners offense is explosive, and you have McCaffrey who can like keep the chains moving. Jawan as well. Kittle's the best player on the team. Like now,
Right.
okay, now it's like coming into focus. But without Ricky, it's like, nah, this is like a very plodding, methodical, slow offense with a
Right.
defense that's not going to like hold good quarterbacks to 17 points.
Yeah, it's less dunking on Ricky and more saying his impact is so significant that
Yes.
he could be such a game changer. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Ricky's sensitive because I called out him shooting jumpers in the locker room while he was rehabbing. I wasn't trying to say anything like that, Ricky. I mean, I swear I wasn't snitching. All right. We alluded to this a minute ago, but is the defense good enough for a playoff run? I mean, I feel like the focus was on them when Nick Bosa went down and Fred Warner went down, and the Niners didn't really make that big move at the trade deadline. People are like, well, this defense is just not salvageable. What's the point? This defense this season is not salvageable. Is the defense good enough for a playoff run, however far that might go?
The one argument I think you can make for it that is clear is that in one game scenarios, and that's what the playoffs is, it's one game. So anything can happen, in that one single scenario. It's not best of seven. It's not anything like that. Is Robert Saleh shows up and, is one of the best, or throws a curveball when you're expecting a fastball. And all of a sudden it's a pick six, or it's, two drives and out, and San Francisco's up 14-0 because, like I said, they have a great play caller. That, in my opinion, is, what could lead them there. But when I look at the unit on paper, I still say no. I would love to have seen Tatum Bethune continue to,
Yeah.
Take that momentum at linebacker. But now it seems like, Robinson isn't good enough. Kendricks, they're bringing in off the street, probably not going to be good enough. And, when I look at their schedule, I see they upset the Rams that one game. And then, they lose to Tampa Bay, give up 30. That's a playoff team. They beat the Falcons, who are pretty bad. They lose to the Texans, who are potentially a playoff team now. Beat
Stroud
the Giants.
diced them up too.
Yeah, and Stroud diced them up, right. And then
Yeah.
they give up 24 to Jackson Dart, who, they're not a playoff team. The Rams dice them up. They beat up on Jacoby Brissett, Bryce Young, and Shador Sanders. The defense is fixed. Or did you just beat up on three quarterbacks who,
Yeah.
and yes, Bryce Young beat the Rams, but it seems like he has this split where he's much better at
Yeah.
home than on the road.
That's
So,
true.
you got him in a situation where you got him in a split. They drove the ball down the field. Brown had an interception in the red zone. They had a couple big drops, things like that. So you say, okay, they can beat Bryce Young, but when the playoffs come and it's, Jordan Love and the Packers and then Matthew Stafford, what I say is they could beat one of them in a scenario, but can they string multiple together? That's where I start to think, I don't think they have the talent to string multiple games together.
Well, I think it's interesting to sort of examine what Robert Saleh has been doing to try to overcome the loss of Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. I mean, I guess what I would do, or like what you would expect someone to do when you have no pass rush, is to bring pressure, rush five. And I think if you look at the stats, the Niners are doing that among the least often of any team in the league. The only team that does it is D'Amico and the Texans, and they have a killer pass rush. So what decision has Robert Saleh made? All right, I'm just going to play bend but don't break defense. I'm going to make you execute. I'm going to make you go down the field slowly, and then we're going to, toughen up, tighten up in the red zone. And that works against Jacoby Brissett.
Right.
It works against Bryce Young at home.
Right.
But you know who it doesn't work against? Matthew Stafford. It doesn't work at all. He gets destroyed. Everyone's open, and he hits them, and you know what I mean?
Right.
So
40 points.
I get
Yeah.
in the playoffs against Jordan Love, I don't think it's gonna be enough to just hang back, play zone, and hope that the offense scores 40.
No, they're going to need much more from their pass rush. And I mean, Cleveland Farrell, what a cool story. But, there's a reason that he had, I think it was like 17 snaps before the 49ers signed him, at the trade deadline, because he hasn't been that productive ever. Keon White, that's great. Much better on third down than the first two downs. So what are you going to do on those first two downs? Like you said, when Stafford is, playing on schedule, it's
Yep.
easy to, when you get Bryce Young or when you get Shador Sanders and you say, well, we know Shador Sanders is going to run the ball in the first two downs. We just need to, or honestly, the funny thing was in that game was, they're going to fumble they're going to fumble at inconvenient moments, and it's going to help our defense
Not
is
to mention
really
Luke Gifford is still on the defense, and anytime an offense has a couple of tight ends, 2, 3 tight ends, they put him in a blender. I mean, even the Browns did it. Harold
right.
Fenton Jr. wide open, Luke Gifford still looking for him.
Right. Yep. And yeah, I mean, Upton Stout's a great player, but he's a rookie who can be picked on at times, And I mean, it really comes down to, like you said, Sulla can mix up the coverages. He really likes Jair Brown, who's obviously having arguably his best season. And then Malik
Yep.
Mustafa, who's back from an injury and, playing very well. So, like you said, if they can bend but don't break and just lean on those two heavily. But like I said, I mean, Curtis Robinson, he just looks confused out there. No kidding. He's a practice squad dude who's, playing 2 weeks on the actual roster. I get it, but he's confused. You're going to replace him with a guy
They
who just
can't
signed
they
off the
can't
street.
identify a screen pass, Parker.
Right. Which, that's what you can see the biggest difference between him and Fred Warner is, it's just so eye-opening of those passes out to the flats that they just don't get anywhere with Fred Warner. And,
Yep.
now all of a sudden there's space out to the flats that you can just see. And that was happening with Bethune, but it's happening a lot more with Robinson. And it's no surprise that there's, I wouldn't be surprised if Kendrick starts, in a week or two.
Well, the good news for the Niners is that Bethune is supposed to come back. Not sure
Right.
when. They probably won't rush him back against the Titans, but I wouldn't be surprised if he played the final 3 games. We'll see how effective he is coming off this injury, but I liked him a lot. He was very physical, very instinctual. Wasn't like like an asset in coverage, but I thought against the run he was really good.
Right. No, and it was kind of like, everyone talked about that viral clip when, Shanahan said, every Fred Warner isn't a Fred Warner until he's Fred Warner. Like that,
Yeah.
you kind of saw that with Bethune of like, okay, he's a nobody or a no name, but he plays with his hair on fire and, okay, he's got, issues with this and a little bit of that, but he's just inexperienced. He plays the ball, he plays very intensely and, he understands what he's doing. He can wear the green dot, which is, obviously very valuable. So, yeah, it just seems like, I think that, like we keep saying, can they reach their ceiling? Obviously with Fred Warner, there's a higher ceiling, but, Bethune does bring a bigger ceiling than what they have right now.
Yeah. Well, getting Siegel and Pinnock out of the lineup was big. Let's talk rookies. Let's go through the rookies at the bye week. Let's give each one a grade, starting from the first round pick, Michael Williams.
Right. I think I went with a C for him because, I mean, you could arguably go incomplete because, he finished through 9 weeks, but if you grade his first 9 weeks, you say, there were flashes when he moved inside on third down. It was obviously valuable to the defense. When they had Bryce Huff and Bosa on the edges and they could get Gross Matos and Williams on the interior, like Sam Darnold in the Seahawks, I know it was week 1, but like they were, in the spin cycle, they were having issues. So, when you could do that, it was very valuable. So he obviously has a value in the NFL and he can defend the run very well. He just had so many, he couldn't rush the passer from the edge. So, he didn't have the bend, the speed, any necessarily of that. So it was, you took the glimpses and you took okay, he has a role in the NFL and that's, an A, but then he's a top 12 pick and he can't rush the passer at the position you're supposed to, rush the passer from. So that's an F. So he came out to a C for me, then you add in the injury.
Yeah, it seemed like they assumed that they could develop the pass rush part of his game. They were like, they could either teach him edge rushing moves. They thought Bosa could teach him edge rushing moves. That's rich. Or they could just move him inside. I feel like that's their solution to everything. But even as an interior rusher, I didn't think he was particularly dynamic. Like Keon White seems a little bit more dynamic as a rusher from the interior than Michael Williams. And that's a problem when you're drafting top 12. I mean, I know he fills a role that they needed. Their run defense was tough, but look, their run defense has been pretty good with Cleveland Farrell out there. You
Right.
don't necessarily need to spend a premium for those kind of players. I think that's the same mistake they made with Javon Kinlaw once upon a time. What was the projection with him? They wanted
Right.
to stuff the run. Great, man. It's the top 15 pick. You could get that in round 2, and we're going to talk about him next. But yeah, in retrospect, this pick didn't make a ton of sense.
Right. And it's actually funny because Cleveland Farrell is not quite a great comparison, but somewhat because he went top 10 or whatever. And, he's a bust, 10 years later, or, it's been X amount of years,
Still
7
in the
years.
league.
He's still in the league and, he's 4 sacks this year. That's great. he obviously did not live up to the top 10 potential. And maybe if he went in the second or third round, you're saying, what a great pick Cleveland Farrell is.
Yep.
And
What a
maybe
real pro.
yeah, like maybe we're talking about that with Williams. If he went in the second and third round, we're saying, hey, good pick by them. Michael Williams is pretty good, but we're saying a top 12 pick, and we're saying,
Yeah. Let me
not
be
so
clear with
much.
Mike Hill. He's going to be in the league a long time and make a lot of money in the NFL. Is he going to have a lot of sacks? I don't think so. But still,
Right.
he's going to start a lot of games and win a lot of games. He's going to be an asset for winning teams. All right, Alfred Collins, you gave him a B plus.
Yeah, right. And I mean, at first, through the offseason and through the first couple games of the season, you were thinking, wow, he's unplayable and this might not be able to work. And then all of a sudden, he's arguably, their most consistent rookie. He is of, it's, not a strong interior defensive line group, but, of Jordan Elliott, Kalia Davis, and CJ West. I'd say he's the best right now. And I'd say moving forward, you have to be the most optimistic of him of those four. So, he made a huge play that won the game against the Rams. Every once in a while, he has a flash. But he doesn't put up a lot of production, so he's not quite an A. But yeah, I'd at least be happy with him at this point.
I feel like he has lived up to his draft billing. Like he was never supposed to be Chris Jones. They might hope he becomes that one day, but he's supposed to be the guy that like you can't move on a run play with a double team. He's supposed to
Right,
be the guy who anchors and sheds and pursues to the ball with incredible motor and effort. And that's exactly what he
right.
is. If he becomes any type of pass rusher and gives you anything on third down, great. But he literally could be a 2-down player his entire career, and he would be a good draft pick if he keep doing this and keep developing this part of his game.
Yep, I agree. And I thought when they drafted him, I thought this guy reminds me of like DJ Jones, sort of player. And you don't look at DJ Jones and you say, "Wow, look at all those sacks." You look at him and say, "The run defense is always better when DJ Jones is on the field." And that's
Yep.
kind of how I view Alfred Collins moving forward. So yeah, I mean, I can't knock the pick.
Nick Martin, D minus.
Right. And at first, the thought is that, and I've explained it on a couple articles that, there's the Mike and the Will at linebacker. And like I said, there's wearing the green dot, and then there's kind of the run and chase aspect of being a linebacker. And, Fred Warner has been the Mike. He's been the play caller. He stands in front. He gets everybody in line. D Winters is sort of like when Fred says go get it, you go get it. He's the run and chase sort of guy. And that's what they've been training Nick Martin to do. So in one argument, you could say when Fred Warner goes down and then they go to Tatum Bethune, okay, that's not a huge, that makes sense because Bethune has been playing the Mike and Martin's been playing the Will. But now you say they're on to Curtis Robinson, who's been awful, like I said. They're on to Eric Kendricks off the street. At some point, don't you just move D Winters over to the Mike and you say, we're worse at two positions, but now we're not just unplayably awful at one position. And that's making me think maybe they aren't as high as Nick Martin. And one thing I've been saying is, D Winters has almost been exposed without Fred Warner of, okay, he was good with Warner because, like I said, I think Warner was like, hey, go do this. And he went and did it. Whereas now Winters has to think a little more for himself, and it's becoming an issue for him. And that's where the coverage issues are coming in. And the 49ers still, I think Kyle Shanahan answered it in like 3 words of like, Winters is struggling. Do you think Nick Martin could get some snaps? And he said, no, if we thought he could, we would. And, that was,
Yeah.
it was like end of story. So that makes me think, okay, maybe Nick Martin isn't, maybe the excuses are running dry for Nick Martin.
Yeah, kind of like how we were asking Kyle and John, like, hey, you think Brandon Aiyuk's coming back? They're like, yeah, probably. Just not
Right.
this week. Same thing with Nick Martin. Oh, yeah, we love him, just not this week.
Yeah, if we play him, we'd play him. Yeah, okay, that doesn't
Yeah.
sound good.
Okay, Upton Stout, A.
Right. I mean, how can you really be disappointed? Like I said, he has his issues in coverage, but I mean, he's a rookie and he was drafted in what, the 4th round. I mean, how can you really, okay, he has a small weakness that can be fixed out a little bit, but he understands Robert Saleh's defense. It would be nice if Saleh came back and they could grow together, but the dude can blitz off the edge. Like he reminds me of Mike Hilton in the way that he can blitz off the edge and defend the run. Just maniacal. He sticks his head in there. He's not afraid of fire. So I think, he's a starter next year.
He's a hell of a player, but you brought up a good point. Like he's very much, you know how Kyle Shanahan has Kyle Juszczyk, and that's sort of his like signature. Like,
Right.
only Kyle Shanahan could make Juszczyk look so dangerous. Well, I feel like Upton Stout is Robert Saleh's Kyle Juszczyk. Like I think a lot of defensive coordinators look at Upton Stout and be like, a 5'8" nickel. I don't, not for me, but for
Right.
Saleh's like that is the skill set I want. He's K'Wan Williams, but even
Hey, that's a
more
good one.
violent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think so. I wonder if Saleh leaves. he may or may not.
Right.
With the next guy, like what happens to Upton Stout? But that's a different issue for another day.
I agree though. Yeah, it makes sense that he is like a very good fit and he plays that tenacious style that Salah just like
Let me
watches
ask you
open
something real quick
smiles.
before, as an interlude before we go on to the next player. You're in Pittsburgh. What do you think the chances are of Tomlin not being the coach there next year? And if he's not the coach, what do you think the chances are of Salah being the coach there next year?
Right. I think honestly, very slim. I think the Steelers are one of those organizations where, there's been 3 head coaches since like World War II or whatever. And, which is crazy. It is true though. But yeah, there's been Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and then Mike Tomlin. And I think they need a strong reason to really move on from Tomlin. And you could say, they're 6-6. Even if they finish 6-11, I think Tomlin's sitting there saying, "I've had to draft Kenny Pickett 20th overall because that's the highest we ever draft is 20th overall, and that's the
Yeah.
only way we can ever get a quarterback." I think he's saying like, "Give me one shot at getting a high quarterback," and I think the Steelers are one of those teams that they seem to give him
Fair.
that time. But I would agree that I think one Robert Saleh would be an excellent fit in Pittsburgh because he would almost bring like that same mentality of what Tomlin's bringing and like the same preaching and all that. And I think Saleh would be insane not to take the job because Pittsburgh comes, like I just said, you just signed a
Job security.
year deal if
Yeah.
you sign on to be the Steelers head coach, especially if you're Robert Saleh, because I couldn't see him losing enough. He had that defense with the Jets playing so well. They obviously couldn't figure it out on offense, but I think that's an organizational failure, whereas the Steelers versus the Jets are different organizations. But I'd be surprised if Tomlin was let go, but I know that's the hot topic. I do understand that.
Okay, next player, CJ West, B.
Right. And at first, wasn't too high on him either. And I think he was inactive for a few games. And I know he broke his hand as well. But right now I'm saying, Kevin Givens hasn't played in weeks because they just can't give any of these snaps that CJ West is taking to a guy like Kevin Givens, who, last year or a year or two around this time, we were saying, hey, Givens is an underrated player. And now we're saying he can't get snaps because CJ West can defend the run. So he's very much a specific role player. I don't see any pass rush future from him. But like I said, you drafted him in what round? The 5th or 6th, and he's a day 3
4.
guy, 4th. I mean, so maybe you want a little more pass rush from him. That's probably why I gave him a B there. But either way, I think he's lived up to expectations as a rookie.
Jordan Watkins, C minus.
Right. And that's another one where, you cut him a little slack because of the ankle injury. And, you thought in preseason, I think he caught a deep ball from Mac Jones and you thought, wow, this guy looks fast and exciting. And then he has the ankle injury and, it seems like they try to get him on the field. And I think he has 34 yards on 17 snaps, which, he's productive. But, he can't get on the field right now. And, it would have been great if, when Ricky Pearsall was out, you replaced that deep ball threat with his speed and you just couldn't. So, it's so tough to say, he's a complete dud, but he's trending that way.
I liked him in training camp. Not that I'm a scout, but I feel like the Niners have such a logjam at that position and so much roster politics that, I mean, it was going to be hard for him. He was hurt, but Kendrick Bourne needed targets, and then
Right.
Jawan needs targets now,
Demarcus
and
Robinson even.
Ricky, DeMarcus. I mean, it's hard, but he's going to be here next year. I wouldn't write him off just yet, but yeah, it was not a good rookie season. He's on my dynasty team, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I might have to drop him. We'll have to see.
Right. And that's why I give him a C minus. I'm not writing him off yet, but I'm also not like, hey, look at this guy heading into next year.
Another guy on my taxi squad on my dynasty team, buying low, Jordan James. God, he was F.
I was excited about him. And now, you could argue that the injury to him caused him to sign Brian Robinson. And now they have Brian Robinson and he doesn't have, he would have been Brian Robinson had he not gotten hurt. So that gives you at least some sort of thought. And yeah, you're like, no, he wouldn't have.
Something is weird with this pick, man. He suited up for 0 preseason games. He has been active 0 times.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he'll ever suit up with the 49ers. I'm not sure. We'll see. It's very weird.
I kind of, yeah, I mean, I could see it that way. And he doesn't have any dynamic traits either, He just seems like a good grinded out
It seemed
runner.
like Kyle wanted Cam Scatterboo, and the front office was like, nah, we got to take Nick Martin or something, and we'll give you Jordan James. And Kyle's been like pouting about it for, I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Hey, you know how that could be. He could be the next Dante Pettis or who was that running back? Joe, whatever.
Joe Williams. Even Joe Williams played in a preseason game. I'm not sure he actually played in a regular season game. Marquise Siegel, D.
Can you believe he's a D? If you would have said this in like September, you were like, oh, A, even though he wasn't performing well, you're saying this is a 6th round pick who's getting on the field. That's
Yeah,
impressive. And then the Rams completely exposed him in that, it was week
yeah,
4 or 5 or whatever.
shock.
And, I know the Rams lost that game, but, missed a couple field goals, had a goal line stand. Like they were creating big plays down the field and they were attacking both of those safeties. And ever since then, he hasn't even played. And now he's not even active, which is almost stunning. But it shows two things that make him really low in my opinion. One, they don't like him in the dime roll more than Jason Pinnock, and Pinnock's been pretty bad in the dime roll. So, like, how you don't like him more than that? That's a big issue in my opinion. And two, he can't play special teams. That seems like it's a red alarm, like a red alert. Like you draft him in the 6th round. The only way he was supposed to make the roster was special teams, and now he
Good point.
can't do that. That's why I'm really down on him despite starting 5
Like
games.
even Isaac Garendo covers kicks. You would rather have Isaac Garendo cover a kick than Marquise Siegel?
Like, yeah, are
Why?
they just giving him a huge mental break, or do they just think he's that bad?
You raise good questions. Curtis Rourke is an obvious incomplete. He's
Yeah.
hurt. They didn't draft him to play this year. Connor Colby, D.
He's another one started for, X amount of weeks and now he doesn't suit up on game days. He's been so bad especially in pass protection, especially against quicker defenders who can, especially they'll stunt one way and stunt to the inside. And every time it's like clockwork that he just gets beat consistently. And they got so sick of it. They called up Nick Zakchek or
Nick
whatever.
Zakel.
Zakel from the
Yeah.
practice squad, and they really couldn't play him because their center got hurt. And then Burford came back and they said, Burford, you haven't played left guard ever in the NFL, and you've been playing left tackle for months and months, and then you got hurt. Why don't you just step in with 1 week of practice because Connor Colby's been that bad?
Yep.
So it seems like, yeah, and like I said, now he's inactive. He might be active now that Ben Barch is healthy, but he's been a huge, and like I said, I don't think they can go into next year thinking that he's any part of the plans, Connor Colby. So it's tough to get too excited about him despite
Didn't you
starting.
write an article recently that the Niners maybe should have considered possibly taking Gray Zabel in round one? I mean, he looks
Yeah,
like an all pro.
right. Or putting any sort of assets into left guard. Stunning that you could say Ben Barch, who's been a backup his whole career, who has never played, he played like a full season in 2022, I think it was. So it's been 3 years. He's been a backup or injured is all he's been for the past 3 years. And they said, that's our guy. And then the
Yep.
backup is Spencer Burford, who we're moving to left tackle. And then the
Oh, no,
backup
no,
is
the backup no, no, no. They had him as the swing tackle in training camp. The
right.
plan was for the backup to be Connor Colby.
A
They're like,
seventh
"Don't worry,
round
don't worry.
rookie.
We got a guy in round 7. We like him."
I mean, it's poor
They
asset
brought this on
resources.
themselves.
And then you're drafting Nick Martin in the 3rd round, who you knew was going to be, I think Nick
A
Martin
project.
was we're afraid, and I think it's we're afraid of D Mart or D Winters. We need to draft somebody sort of deal. And it's kind of now D Winters isn't good and Nick Martin isn't good. Great job,
Yeah. Yeah, and you waited super long to take an offensive lineman. I feel like Kyle Shanahan and the Niners have a little bit of like a troll in them, where they try to act like they block out the noise. Nah, man, they hear the noise and they hate being told what to do. And when their fans and analysts say, "Hey, you got to address that offensive line," they're like, "Oh, we do? Well,
Yeah.
we just did. Ben Barch and Connor Colby. How you like that?" It's like, man, that's not what we meant.
Yeah, and Shanahan hears it because every time they start that backup quarterback, I say it all the time. Like Shanahan draws up his best game plan. Every time the starter goes down, the next week is like the best game plan you'll ever see because Shanahan is like, watch this. Like you guys
Yes.
don't think I can do this? I can do this. He's a cocky person.
Yeah, and that's like the best and the worst thing about him. Like
Yes,
against the Rams in week 5, it was like who else could have pulled that off other than Kyle Shanahan?
very impressive. Yeah.
Yes. But then like in the Super Bowl when he has the lead, it's like who else could give this away other than
Yes.
I still believe, maybe you disagree as a Pittsburgh native, that if Mike Tomlin were coaching the 2023 49ers, that loaded roster, they win the
Right.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Tomlin guy, so I'm sure everyone in Pittsburgh is like, no shot, they can't win with him. But I mean, he keeps everything in line, and he kind of keeps that steady pulse of they can blow a stupid game, but when it's time to show up for a big game, they typically show up for the big game. So I mean, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. It's hard to say anything about that, but
True.
like you said, he did have leads in those scenarios, so it's also tough to say anything, and especially the overtime scenario. That's a tough sting for Kyle Shanahan.
Final draft pick, Junior Bergen. That was hilarious. F. I don't know what they were thinking on that one. But you know what? We'll give Brant Boyer a pass because he's been great. That was just, I was, it was like it was Mr. Irrelevant ish.
Right.
Sorry, Junior. We'll see what you got. Let's look ahead. Final four games. Home against the Titans. Boy, they're good. Then on the road to Indianapolis, face the Colts. Come back. Got, why am I blanking?
The
The
Bears at home,
Bears.
yeah.
The Bears. And then finally against the Seahawks at home. What are you expecting?
Well, first off, if they win one game, according to The Athletic, if they beat the Titans and then they lose the other three, 59% chance of making the playoffs, like just based off that. So, I mean, they really like just win at home against the Titans is the majority. And then I think, yeah, I mean, you kind of just win one other one and you lock it up. And then I think, the Colts on prime time is probably going to be a tough spot, especially on the road. Place is going to be rocking. They seem to be trending in the wrong way, but that also means that, they're going to be throwing the kitchen sink out at that game because they're close to missing the playoffs after starting 8-1. So that's
And
going to
aren't
be
they
a
way better at home?
Yes. All their losses are. I think they lose all the time on grass too because they won a few road games, but they were like in they played the Chargers in L.A., so it wasn't a grass surface. But then they go to Pittsburgh and Kansas City and they start looking slow. So
Mhm.
you get them at home. I would be impressed if they could beat the Colts in Indianapolis. So you say 1-1 there. Chicago at home, as good as Chicago has played, Caleb Williams still misses a lot of easy passes. Yeah, he misses a lot of stuff. And their defense, the biggest thing with their defense right now is Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards are out. They're starting like DeMarco Jackson, who's a nobody, and Kyle Shanahan is the best at when you have a bad linebacker. He will just do like consistently. He will just attack the linebacker, whether it's McCaffrey, Juszczyk, Kittle. Like it could get ugly in Chicago in terms of can the defense hold on because Ben Johnson's a great play caller. We'll see, but I'm going to give them a win there, and then it comes down to that last game against Seattle. If they win two, they're going to be 11-6 or 11-5. So if they
I
lose, they
think it's
would go
going to
to
be
11.
tough against Seattle without a pass rush. I
Yeah,
mean,
and I
Darnold
mean
isn't
I think
great.
Seattle's going to need it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
could see 11-6.
Yeah. It's fair. It's fair.
Yeah.
All right. Then that begs a question. They're probably going to get to the playoffs. What does a successful season look like? I think the Niners really tried to lower the bar of expectations early on. They're like, look, we lost like 9 starters or whatever it was. We're starting rookies. We're going to take our lumps. Keep that in mind. And
Yes.
then they didn't do anything at the trade deadline.
Yes.
And then they lost Bosa and Warner, not in that order.
Right.
Uh, but it seemed like at a certain point, if they just made the playoffs, people would give them like a freaking parade. Like, wow, what a stunning and brave achievement. But then you look around the league and there's just no really great team. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I have a hard time with this too because it's like you said, when you lose Bosa and Warner, and it seems like every week, Kyle Shanahan may win Coach of the Year this season when,
Mhm.
this isn't necessarily, he's not a one seed steamrolling teams over, but a lot of people are more impressed with this season by Kyle Shanahan than they are with a lot of his other performances. So you could just walk away and say that's a really good season, especially, what I think is if you're the 7 seed and you go 11-6 and draw the 7 seed, first off, you just say that's a tough break. And then
Mhm.
it depends who you draw there. If you draw the Rams and you're the 7 seed and you're on the road against the Rams and they just put it on you, you kind of sit back and say, you know what, that was a tough break.
Yeah.
If I mean, like I said, if you get the Bears and you say they got some bad linebackers, Caleb Williams
We
first,
just beat him a couple weeks ago, maybe. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
okay, we beat them at home, and now we probably have to travel to them. It's a little different, but still, Robert Saleh against Caleb Williams in his first playoff game. I don't really care where it is. And Kyle Shanahan against that defense. I don't really care where it is. I don't think you can lose that game. So I think it does kind of depend on the situation. I think the most interesting one is, Seattle. If they played Seattle, on one hand, if that defense just goes off, that defense just goes off. On the other hand, we've seen Sam Darnold in the playoffs with the Vikings. It was awful. We've seen Sam Darnold in big moments. It usually doesn't go well. You know, shouldn't you be able to shut down Sam Darnold? That's what I think is like the biggest question.
How about this? It does. You bring up a great point. It does matter how they lose if they lose.
Right.
So let's say they face the Seahawks and Sam Darnold just eviscerates them.
Right.
And you say, well, the defense fell apart. Yeah,
Right.
like, what are you gonna do? The defense fell apart. But if they face whoever and Purdy throws 2 picks and the offense scores 19 points, that's a
Yes.
big fucking problem.
Yes.
Yeah,
No, that's exactly I completely agree, and even if it is Seattle, and I
yeah.
think if you get into that, like, 17-13 game with Seattle, you can say great defense, this, that, and the other, but a part of you says, like I started the episode off with, when you're Kyle Shanahan, like I just said, you're cocky. You think you're the best. You think you are the best play caller. Like, I don't want to hear we have a bad left guard and Brandon Ayuk is out. That's not
Don't do
enough.
that shit. You
Yeah,
got
like we
everything else
drafted
that you
Ricky in the
wanted.
first round. Yeah, like
Yep.
we got guys. Like we can't just score 13 in the playoffs and lose. I don't care how good Seattle's defense is. And yeah, they have enough holes that I don't agree with. Yeah, like I said, if the Rams
The
put it on
pressure's
you,
on the offense the rest of the season, especially in the play. You can't be the reason you lose a playoff game. The
yeah,
offense has to play well, put up points, not turn it over a bunch. Because if the defense steps up and you don't, that just brings up all kind of questions like the contract for Purdy, the voided guarantees for Aiyuk. Like all
yes.
of that stuff becomes the topic of conversation all offseason as opposed to, oh, well, Warner and Bosa are coming back. Don't worry. It's all good.
Right. Oh, we
Yep.
we scored 38 and they scored 42. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
Honestly, I would if I was a 49ers fan, I don't even care really who it would be for the most
Yeah.
part. Like I said, if Caleb Williams was putting it on Robert Saleh, I guess I would be happy because Robert Saleh's not getting a job. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
besides that, I wouldn't, there are a few scenarios where they give up 40 and I'm disappointed. But that's where it goes back to where we started the episode is that everyone says the defense isn't good enough. Right now, I say I don't know if the offense is good enough, and that's the problem. And yeah, it comes down to Purdy and Pearsall and can McCaffrey be more explosive? Yeah, it's hard to blame
Yeah.
George Kittle, but everyone else is kind of you could point to. Yeah,
I don't think this team really expects to win the Super Bowl.
no,
I don't think they do. And if and when this season ends, I think they're ready and eager to blame the defense.
yes,
We'll see. Because again, that makes it a much cleaner discussion this offseason. The defense just attrition. That's what happened. But
I
if it's the
agree.
offense, which it was against Jacksonville,
Yep.
I mean, if it very nearly was against Carolina, well,
Yes.
they have some explaining to do. Let's do a prize pick interlude. What's cool about prize pick these days is they have like this beta thing where you could just pick games. And I like picking players when it's Niners, but I think it'd be fun this weekend with Parker to just go through and pick games.
Yeah.
So, how about Pittsburgh, Baltimore? Who you like?
With the spread or just to win?
Just to win. Now,
I
I mean,
think
you can see the odds are different for each one, so we would give
right.
different payouts for each one, but it's just to win.
I'm gonna go Baltimore. They're at home. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Okay. How about Seahawks, Falcons?
I think Seattle can do it. I think it's going to be closer than people think, but I think Seattle will win that game.
All right, let me try to find one that's not as. Is it only one? Hold on. Wait a second. I'm tripping.
Uh,
See, I haven't done this before. Let me see if I can get this right. Baltimore. I have to verify my identity.
oh
Man, you
boy.
don't know me by now?
Yeah.
They don't know me by now on prize
All
picks? Man,
prize
I didn't.
picks.
I'll do that next time. All right, my bad. We'll just do players this time. I have to verify my identity.
They give you a code, but they don't know you.
Bo Jackson? There's a running back at Ohio State named Bo Jackson?
I watch a lot of college football after the NFL season, so I got to learn.
Jeez Louise. All right, hold on. We can't do Niners because
They're off.
they're not playing this weekend. So what we could do, why don't we do Tennessee as like advanced scouting?
There you go. What a fun and a team they just played.
Oh,
That's even better.
look at this game, Parker. Holy fuck.
And the debate
Shador and
was,
Cam
do you
Ward.
draft Shador or Cam Ward? That was the debate
Oh,
all draft season.
okay. Cam Ward, 176 and a half passing yards, more or less. Those are the only two words you can use. So I didn't prep you
Less.
before the game. More or less.
I
Less?
say less, yes.
Okay. Rushing yards. Quinshon Judkins, 79 and a half rushing yards, more or less. Oof.
More.
It's tough
That's a
when you
tough
have
one.
no threat to pass. More?
I
It's
lean
gonna go.
more. Just I think Tennessee's given up almost.
Yeah, there's that. Tony Pollard, 45 and a half
I'll say
rushing yards.
under. Less.
Less. Okay. Receiving yards. Man, the names on this team. Jerry Jeudy, after completely
Less.
insulting Shador Sanders on the sideline.
Yeah, right. He's not
30
getting
and
the
a
ball this
half.
week. I'm still saying less.
Good luck, Jerry. He's terrible. Harold Fannin, 35 and a half. He's their
That's
best player.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the only one I could go over on, and I will
More,
just because I feel
more.
like I'm going less everywhere else.
Who is on the Titans? Eric Elik Ayaman. He's a rookie.
Yes, and then the other dude's a rookie, Gunnar Helm. I'll go under for him,
Less.
less for him.
Less for him. Okay, those are Parker's picks. We'll flex it. We'll submit it.
Let's go.
Download Prize Picks. Use promo code COHN. Play $5. Get $50 instantly in lineups when you play that more or less game. All right. The impending free agents. Let's take a look at the list of names and figure out which ones are maybe worth bringing back, but which ones you think will get brought back by this team that wasn't into re-signing many free agents this offseason.
Right.
So here are the names we got. Burford, Jennings, Elliott, Davis, Kalia Davis. So start with let's save Juwan. Let's start with Spencer Burford. What do you think they'll do?
I think there's a decent chance he's back. One, there's
I
not
agree.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a huge market for him. First of all,
Exactly.
Yeah.
They love offensive linemen like that.
They love offensive
He
linemen.
knows
like
our
that.
system. No one else wants him. He can be kind of cheap. Perfect.
He can play left tackle and left guard, Grant. Can he play either of them well? I don't know. We'll find out.
For free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for free. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't pay us to do it. So I honestly, I think he'll be back. What I think is that, like I keep saying, if he does anything in these next 4 games and you walk into the offseason and say, we don't need to address left guard because we have Spencer Burford, I mean, come on, John Lynch, like get your stuff together. If you do that, that's insane. If you say we like some depth and he's super cheap, fine, whatever. You cannot go into it thinking he's the starter. That would be just no.
But
I don't care what he does.
if he plays well in these last 4 games, God forbid if he plays decently in a playoff game, they are giving him a 3-year deal.
Insane. And they're going to go into this season and they'll draft another 6th round guy and they'll say between the 6th round guy and Colby, the cream will rise to the top. And no, it will not. It'll be Spencer Burford. And
what cream?
Yeah, that'll be an issue.
Okay,
they cannot
I'm glad we agree on that. Spencer Burford, 3-year deal incoming based on what he does in the next month.
Yes.
No pressure, Spencer.
Yeah.
Okay. Jordan Elliott. They seem to like him.
They do, but I just seem to watch him every week and say, there's no way he's coming back, right? I just can't see it. Especially what I honestly think with Elliott is that, if you put him on every other team, it seems like he would be competing for like the last roster spot. And it would be like that final preseason game. And it's like, there's Jordan Elliott, competing for the final roster spot. And for the Niners are like, lock him in as a starter. There's nobody better. I just can't see them doing that another season. I think they don't have as many holes. Alfred Collins is here. CJ West is here. Let's get some real defensive linemen.
And Collins is ascending. Yeah, Jordan Elliott's not going to come back. Also, Yeturgros Matos is not going to come back.
I would hope not after. I mean, he can't stay healthy in San Francisco. So whether it's the water or whether it's him.
You know what hurt though is like with these players that can't stay healthy on the Niners and then go somewhere else and automatically suddenly they're healthy. It's like, maybe it was that power station next to you.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Whatever.
Kalia Davis.
Now
they drafted him.
Right. And I could see him coming back because I could see them saying whatever his injury was to start his career kind of like derailed his first couple seasons. And, we stood by you through, the rehab and we bet on you when no one else is betting on you. And you've turned into a starter who puts in a few snaps. But again, similar to Burford, you can't just be like, we got Alfred Collins, CJ West, Kalia Davis. Let's just add a day 3 pick and call it a day. Like you can't do that either. You have
Don't forget Michael Williams.
Well, yeah, because he's essentially an interior guy anyways. Yeah, so you add some outside rushers. But yeah, I could see them bringing him back.
All right, finally, Juwan Jennings. I mean, the arc with him has been so interesting. He essentially wanted Brandon Aiyuk's money. He felt, hey, I'm better than Brandon Aiyuk. I want to be here. He doesn't really. I'll take a little bit less than you gave Brandon. And the Niners were like, LOL, who do you think you are? Now Brandon seems to be out of the picture, and Juwan seems to have perked up, and he's in a good mood again, and he's playing pretty well.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's not going to get 20. I don't know. I feel like he cost himself a lot of money this year with his attitude and his lack of production. But they have the budget. Maybe you could get him for $15-16 million a year. Yeah. He knows the system.
He does know the
system.
system.
Runs a 4.8.
Perfect. That's
Yeah.
great. And he can
Yeah.
block, which is great, which,
Wow.
obviously, yeah, thank goodness he can
Yep.
block. It fits right into the 49ers scheme.
Yep.
But what I keep going to is, earlier in the season, he was playing so poorly that it was like, get him off the roster. Now he's at a point where he has to be looking and saying, yeah, like, okay, San Francisco, I think I wrote like, 13 million would be a fair, like, and you
Mhm.
said, 14 or 15 because of, okay, bump it up a little. We paid you now that other teams are bidding. But I think he's looking at free agency and he's like, these teams get really stupid when free agency comes and they're going to start throwing money around. And could I get 5 years, $100 million with, like 70 of it guaranteed? And like,
And
I
the
mean,
Niners won't bid against another team for Juwan Jennings. Once he
no, that
hits
would
free
be
agency, he's
insane.
gone.
Yeah,
If they haven't extended him by now, they're not gonna extend him. He's
that's
gone.
what I think. Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I
you're
think
right.
too,
You're
is
right.
that they're looking at it like, yeah, like if we wanted you, we would have signed you. And now you're either so bad that we don't want you, or you're so good that you're pricing yourself out of us. Either way, we're not re-signing you. And they can
What I
explain it
don't
off
like
either
though is
way.
like if you know you're not gonna like win the bidding for him, why are you forcing the ball to him just to increase like the value of the comp pick that you get back? Or wouldn't you want to sort of use someone who might be here next year? Like you could re-sign Kendrick Bourne for $1.50. I'm just saying.
I guess you're sitting there and saying that, we've seen enough of Kendrick Bourne is I guess what they're saying. Hey,
To be fair, he has no type of chemistry with Brock Purdy. So I
right.
mean,
And
maybe it's a Purdy decision.
he did have it with Mac Jones, and it seems
Yeah.
like obviously going back to New England and all that. But yeah, and then Purdy and Jennings have had it for years, whereas Jennings and Jones have not had it for years. That does make sense.
So Jennings on the way out, most likely. They'll bring back Spencer Burford. Thank
Our boy.
goodness. That means that their wide receivers next year will be Ricky, not Brandon, Jordan Watkins, Jacob Cowing,
Sky
and
Moore,
Devontae Booker.
baby.
So, do you think they'll sign someone other than Jawan Jennings in free agency, or they'll go into the draft needing to spend their first round pick on a wide receiver?
I guess they would need to sign someone. I
Yeah.
don't think it would be a big name, though. I think it would be, similar to like a better version of Kendrick Bourne. I'd have to look at some free agents who are available, but someone in that Kendrick Bourne type of range, and someone like Jennings and Bourne, who, like you said, is slow but can block and can, maybe make a contested catch or two. That would probably be who, if I were them, I would seek to sign. And then, I mean, I think there are three obvious needs: interior defensive line, wide receiver, and left guard. And like, if that's not your first round pick, one of those three, then you're just doing it completely wrong. So I mean, left guard value, this and that. So, I mean, it could very easily be a wide receiver in the first round, along with Pearsall, and then, insert free agent, mid-range free agent here.
You know who's going to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason?
Who?
Debo.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, he's not having that great of a season that, maybe he'll sign at a reasonable price and they'll say, hey, we thought this was going to happen all along. This is what
Instead
we
of giving
planned.
hella money to Jawan Jennings, you could sign Keenan Allen to run a 4.8. Also, he went
That's
to Cal.
right.
He might play for a little bit. I don't know.
That's right. Can he block as good as Juwan? That's going to be the issue.
I'm just saying they could get George Pickens. Yo, what was that? I guess
What?
that's the George Pickens experience. Not the first time he's done some weird
Oh,
shit.
yes. No, I wasn't surprised at all. I was waiting for the other shooter
Can you
drop at the
explain
Pittsburgh
the
person.
George Pickens experience? Because it looked like he had just put it all together for a few months.
Uh, it's almost like it's not that he cares too much, but it's that he's too emotional and too passionate that, when
Oh,
it doesn't
he
start going
takes
his
himself out of
way,
the games when he's upset.
yeah, like it's just started spiraling out of his way. Like I
He doesn't
remember
have
one time,
emotional regulation.
yeah, like Russell
Yeah.
Wilson threw a ball to him and it turned into a pick six. And Russell Wilson like immediately ran over to him and like gave him a hug and was like, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not," as if like,
Don't freak out. Don't freak out.
yeah, and like
It's a
to like
long
kind of
game.
keep his
That's
head
so
in the
interesting.
game of like, dude, we need you in. Like, I know I threw a pick six when I targeted you, but we need you in this game. And it seems like Pickens is one of those dudes. Like, once one thing goes wrong, he's like, I can't believe this isn't going my way. And it's like, dude, like, calm down.
Because just a week ago, I was thinking, like, man, the Steelers were so dumb for trading him for a
Right.
third and then trading a second for DK. And now I'm like, okay, I get why they did that. I sort of
It's
understand
always
why
been
they did
about
that.
off the field. Yeah, it's always
Yeah,
been
and I'm
about
not
off the
certain that
field.
like Pick is going to be on the Cowboys next year. I think
Right.
it's funny that there was a report the Niners almost traded Aiyuk for Pickens, and the Steelers weren't into it. Like Pickens wouldn't have worked on the Niners. They had a problem with Aiyuk being a diva.
Yeah. And like
Dude,
you said, Shanahan is one of those dudes that like he gives people the cold shoulder, and that's not going to work with a dude like Pickens. Like Mike Tomlin was very like let me wrap my hand around you and let me hug you and squeeze you tight. And George Pickens even said he said I still call Mike Tomlin or something like 2 weeks ago. He said in an interview he still calls Mike Tomlin. So it's like
I mean,
that's who
Kyle
George
will sort
Pickens
of give you
needs.
the silent treatment. Like he'll just won't
Yeah,
talk to you. He'll be like,
yes, George Pickens would freak out, and George Pickens would do what Aiyuk does to a bigger degree, where he would go MIA, he would delete social media, he would, he would post like something very cryptic, and then he would delete social media, and then he would, yeah, you would never
Parker
hear from
though, this
him.
is my issue with Kyle, is like, and I've been talking about this for so many years, but like he'll give the cold shoulder to certain players.
Yeah,
Other players, they're at his wedding, they're at like
his pet.
they're at like the freaking yeah. I mean, he would never give the cold shoulder to freaking Christian McCaffrey or George Kittle
Right.
or Nick Bosa or Fred
Or
Warner.
it's like
Ever.
Trent Taylor versus Dante Pettis. Like he loves Trent Taylor way more than Dante Pettis, and it's like okay, I
That's
don't know.
ancient history. Did you know that Trent Taylor is still on the 49ers?
That's why I said it because I saw him at like a Halloween party, and I said Trent Taylor's still on the 49ers.
Oh yeah. They have
I,
him on the practice squad. Or no. Maybe I'm wrong. No. He's on IR.
that's one of
He's
those that yeah,
rehabbing for the future.
I don't care
Come
what it is. He's
on,
on the
man.
team
To
because
me,
he's
that's
got a
like
soft
just
spot.
say he's here because he's George Kittle's friend, man.
Yes.
IR.
Yeah.
So he gets to use the facilities and work out, and there's like probably trainers spending time on him. Like, dude, it's a waste of everyone's time and resources.
I couldn't
I
I
mean,
I couldn't believe Trent when I saw it, I was like, why is Trent Taylor there? Oh, he's actually
he's
on
in
the
the locker
roster.
room all the time. Like, so we'll go in on Friday, which is like with a day where you don't really get anything in the locker room. Monday,
Right.
hella people talk. Thursday, a lot of people talk. Friday, everyone doesn't want to talk. It's over. They've
Right.
talked already. So it's like sparse. It's almost like the Wild West. And who's in there? Trent. What's he doing? Shooting jumper. It's like, dude, why do we
Yeah.
see you?
Aren't you
Anyway,
on IR? Yeah.
we don't have any questions for you. Like,
Yeah, I
damn.
was gonna say you could get a
Anyway,
good quote out of him. If you really needed a quote, you could get one out of him.
okay, so those are the impending free agents, but there's also the
Right.
guys entering the final year of their deal who've been in the league for 3 years who are finally eligible for extensions. We've gone through this the last few years with, big name dudes, Brock Purdy, Brandon Aiyuk, Nick Bosa. No big name dudes this year. This year it's just Jair Brown and D Winters. Is either one worth a premature, not a premature, but a preemptive
Right.
extension before they hit free agency in 2027?
I think it's smart if you like a guy to do it this year because you just get ahead of the cap goes up. He plays really well and his cash goes up. Teams start bidding on him. It gets messy if you don't do it this year. But D Winters, I'm gonna firmly say no. Like I said, I just think
Thank you. I was
yeah.
afraid you were going to say yes on D.
Oh no! Like I said, I think Fred Warner, his injury really exposed D Winters, really put him out of. Like I said, I think he is. I could equate it to like bowling with the bumpers on. If you put the bumpers on, fine. He can bowl. A 200 and it can bounce back and forth, and he can knock down a few pins. That's great. But when you take those bumpers away, and that's Fred Warner, and all of a sudden he's roaming for himself, it's too many gutter balls and he's not scoring nearly high enough and he's given up issues in coverage. The only thing I think he does well is blitz, and like we talked about, Robert Saleh doesn't blitz enough, so he should probably go
Right.
somewhere where they blitz a little bit more. So I say firmly no for him, but I would say Jair Brown, I have a hard time not saying yes with him, especially if Robert Saleh comes back. And I mean, what I think of Brown is he's been through, they've tried to get rid of him plenty of times, or they've tried to start someone else beside him plenty of times, and they just can't seem to get rid of him. He's like a cockroach who, I'm still here and I'm still the best option you have, is what he, every year they come back to, he's still the best option they have. He's still the best option. And this year he's arguably playing the best. He had 2 interceptions against Carolina. Like I said, I think Saleh is able to play a different form of defense because him and Mustafa can both play back and forth. They can play in the box and deep, and they can switch pre-snap and post-snap and things like that. So I think he's a fit, and I think you extend him.
What's interesting about these two guys is they essentially are here to replace two very good starters
Right.
who are now in Denver, and they're healthy and they're playing well. And Jair Brown is playing well and he's ascending, but I don't think he, at least yet, is anywhere near as good as Talanoa Hufanga.
No.
And what's ironic about Dre Greenlaw, it seemed like the main reason the Niners didn't bring him back is they've had injury concerns, which were valid. But
Right,
now he's healthy and Fred Warner isn't, which you can't predict that. But
right.
I wonder if the Niners at this point regret or miss those players.
I think when it comes to Brown, like I said, I think that, and like you said, he signed an extension, but he signed, I just looked, $13 million per year with Denver. Jair Brown, I'm talking more like $4 or $5 million per
Yeah,
year.
it's true.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, like I just think that $8 million difference is, I understand there's a difference, but I think for the 49ers, I think that they say, you know what, that's okay. I think if you're the 49ers, like I said, I think they thought between D Winters and Nick Martin, one of them can do this, and
yeah,
now
yeah,
neither of them can do this. And that's an issue. It's so tough because Greenlaw, like Hufanga is better than Greenlaw. So, or like he's been healthier, he's been a better
yeah.
player, he's been so good in Denver. Whereas Greenlaw is kind of coming along, he's been injured a little bit, then he got suspended, then he's come back, and he hasn't been quite, he's been better than, D Winters has been, obviously, but he hasn't been that great. So it's like, do you miss him? Yes, obviously, but you also, I understand why they let him go, because every reason they let him go has come up in Denver. It's just they also miss him. So it's a weird one.
I agree with re-signing Jair Brown. I think that you saw what it looked like with Marquise Siegel. That's not an option. Jason, it's
Yeah.
not necessarily easy to find a a good starting safety. And you have a good starting corner in Diamondo Lenore on a second contract. You probably need another vet in this secondary to go along with him. And it seems like he's earning it. You could wait another year, feel like, let me just make sure this isn't a fluke. But if you wait another year and he plays well, then you're probably giving Talanoa Hufanga money, and you couldn't afford Hufanga to begin with. So you sign him now, you could probably get him 2-3 years. Now the question is, does Jair go for it? How does he feel about this organization? He was benched. He's got moved around a little bit. He called himself a top 5 safety in the league. Like, does he believe that? Would he bet on himself? Don't know, but you need to figure it out and put a contract in front of him. You could do it now. No, you
Right.
can't. You gotta wait. You gotta wait 4 weeks. You could do it before the first week of the playoffs.
Right. And I agree, though, that I mean, I think it does come down to, what does he think of himself? You are correct.
Yeah.
And what does he think of the way that 49ers have treated him? Because for the most part, they said to him, you're only starting because Hufanga's hurt, or you're only starting because, I forget the other guy who was hurt. You're only starting because people are hurt right now. You are, and then we were going to start Jason Pinnock, who, the Jets and
Uh-huh.
Giants cast away over you. But then you say, but he's a really good fit in this Robert Saleh defense, and couldn't he
But
just
will
say,
Salah be here? And did Salah put his arms around him and make Jair Brown feel like, "Look, man, we're
right,
benching you, but I believe in you, and we're gonna need
right,
you." Did Kyle give him the cold shoulder last year? Like,
right,
because again, there's a lot of players who feel like they're in, and there's players who feel like they're out, and the ones who are out are often on the defense. Frankly,
that's
on
true.
the defense.
That's true. And it's
Travarius
going to
Ward,
take,
Dre Greenlaw, DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, over and over and over. It's like, except for the two guys on the defense, and maybe Lenore is 3, maybe not. We'll see.
right. Well, they
So
paid him. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, next question. We're almost done. I have a bonus question for you, but this is the last
Yeah.
Niners question. Do you think the Niners will trade Mac Jones this offseason? Should they? Will they?
Tough one. I think they should and they will. One, quarterbacks, people are just so
Spoken like a
desperate.
true Steelers fan, an
I was
envious,
just saying,
covetous Steelers fan.
I watch Mac Jones a lot, and every week I say, for a little draft pick, and like I said, before the Tampa Bay Buccaneers gave Baker Mayfield his big money, and I said it, before the Seattle Seahawks gave Sam Darnold his big money, they gave Sam Darnold, the Vikings gave him a moderate contract, and the Buccaneers gave Baker a moderate contract. I think it was like a 1 or 2 year deal, and the
Kind of a
Jets did it
proven
to
thing.
Justin Fields, and it didn't go well. But
Yeah.
I think somebody's going to say the Baker thing, the Sam Darnold thing, the Justin Fields thing that didn't go well, but it's the same idea of the former first round pick who was going to go really high. Whether it be, I was just thinking Matt Patricia was calling plays for Mac Jones during his second season. Like, let's all just take a second to process that, because like Adam Gase was calling plays for Sam Darnold, and that was an embarrassment, and it ruined
Mhm.
Sam Darnold's career until he, multiple stops to revive it. Imagine what Matt Patricia could do to you. It would
Yeah.
probably take multiple stops. And what I keep laughing at is I had Brian Thomas Jr. in fantasy last year, and he was incredible with Mac Jones, and he was awful with Trevor Lawrence. And lo and behold, this year he's awful with Trevor Lawrence again. Like, is Mac Jones just making dudes like Brian Thomas Jr. really good?
He
Like, what's
made
up with
Kendrick
that?
Bourne good.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, listen, he can run an offense. he can keep you in line. If
Yeah.
I was, a team like the Steelers or any team that, if I was the freaking Minnesota Vikings, I would give him the Sam Darnold treatment and say, you're going to compete with JJ McCarthy. You're going to Daniel Jones, Daniel Jones to Anthony Richardson, JJ McCarthy. You're going to be that person.
Yep.
So, like, if I was, the Vikings, the Steelers, I could probably list other teams and say, like, why wouldn't they? If you're the Steelers, because their issue is, I think, they're probably going to go 9-8 again this season. If you're 9-8, how do you get a quarterback high? I
Yeah.
keep saying I would love for them to go 6-11 because they can at least draft a quarterback, but they're probably not going to lose the last 5 games. So how do you get a quarterback? You
Trade
got
a
to take
second for Mac
like that.
Jones.
So yeah,
So
I just think they have
it
to.
does seem like the Niners, there's going to be a market for him, and instead of them having to call teams and like offer, they're probably going to get teams calling them saying,
Right.
what will it take?
Yes.
So the only issue is, how confident are you in Brock,
Right.
or how confident are you in Curtis Rourke? Because it seems like this team needs a second quarterback, and
Yeah.
you don't have to. I mean, a lot of guys have been successful in this system, but a lot of guys haven't as well. You got to be like a legit starting quarterback, and you'll do great. But if
Right.
you're some third stringer, like, you're going to throw hella picks, get hurt, get benched. We saw that with CJ Beathard and Brian Hoyer. So
Right.
I will see. I don't know. Maybe they'll bring in another quarterback in addition to Curtis Rourke.
But I think we've talked about it. If you're Kyle Shanahan and you're that cocky person, and I think he's saying,
Everyone said, you got to keep Mac. You got to keep Mac.
well, yeah,
Fine.
maybe. But I think
Yeah.
he's saying, oh, I forgot about CJ Beathard. What about Nick Mullins, baby? I'm going to do the same thing with Curtis Rourke, who should have been a higher draft pick, but he tore his ACL. I had him graded, X amount high. He's going to be my next, whether it be Mullins to Darnold to Mac Jones. I'm a quarterback factory, baby. Not the 49ers. I am. That's what Kyle Shanahan's going to be
Just
saying.
don't forget 2024, Kyle, because you brought in Brandon Allen. You were hyping up. You had Brandon Allen on the team for 2 years.
That's
Then
right.
you brought in Josh Dobbs, who
Sudfield.
actually had like played kind of well at
That's right.
times in 2023. And those guys came and played for you, and they were awful. So again, I'm not saying like you got to spend a lot on a backup, but you got to take it seriously. And you have something in Mac, and you have him under contract. He wants an extension. Tough dude. You signed a 2-year deal. There's no reason to necessarily downgrade a backup quarterback, because even if you do trade him for a second round pick, man, like, you miss on that pick and Mac Jones goes and it's like a good starting quarterback for the Steelers, you lost that trade and you feel stupid.
Yeah, you feel like the
Yeah.
Minnesota Vikings who just did it with Sam Darnold or whatever.
Yep.
Obviously, Purdy's floor is not nearly McCarthy or
Right.
anything like that, but it's obviously, I mean, if you're the 49ers, you need to be somewhat blown away, and that probably would be, because I think Geno Smith went for a 3rd round pick. So you're thinking, yeah, like it has to be that 2nd round pick where you're saying, okay, that's where we get a starter. Like I said, you need a defensive tackle, a left guard, and a receiver. Maybe you sign that left guard and you say, we drafted a receiver high, and now we're going to get a defensive tackle who can start for Mac Jones. Like, now we have no holes in our roster. So here we go, sort of thought. And you obviously have to believe in Brock Purdy. And, I think that means the next 4 games, like we talked about, over 2.5 seconds, not 0 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. If that's the case, maybe you don't let Mac Jones go. But, if you say, okay, he was injured, he was working through it. Now he's making plays on the run. Now he what a huge playoff win. He only scored 23 against Seattle, but 23 against Seattle is a great job. And he won a playoff game that way. Then I think you're just saying, let's cash in. But if it is, wow, Brock Purdy threw 4 interceptions against Seattle, he's going to struggle against the defense in his own division for the next X years, we might need to have that backup plan. I guess that maybe it does, just come down to these next 4+
How
games.
Brock plays. Yeah. It's up to you, Brock. Okay, I got a final question. This is a bonus question. I had this thought. I noticed that was it last week Ohio State played Michigan, and
Right.
there was like 18 million television viewers for this game. The Niners and the Panthers, which was Monday Night Football, had about 12 million. And I'm not a big college football guy. I'm from the Bay Area. Cal, Stanford, San Jose State.
Right.
It's nothing compared to the Niners and the Raiders, or at least when I was growing up.
Right.
But I know in other parts of the country, like, college football is huge and people are really into it. And it seems like what the NFL has done is created this league of parity, and that's what they wanted. They want every fan base to feel like they're in it. And there's some positives to that. But it seems like the drawback we're seeing it this year is like there's no marquee matchups anymore. There's no game that you're like, I gotta see that. I mean, a couple
Right,
years ago, it was like Buffalo and Kansas City's like, man, I gotta see that. But like, what
right,
is that game this year? Whereas this weekend, Indiana and Ohio State, everyone's gonna want to watch that. You have
right.
dominant teams, really good rivalries. In the
Yeah,
NFL, you got like, I don't know, Rams losing to the Panthers. So I
right.
think the NFL is gotta be careful here. You could get overtaken by college football if you make your league super mediocre.
It's actually a pretty interesting point, and I mean, I think it was a few years ago. It was like Mahomes' second year or something, and Sean McVay was still new. And that Rams Chiefs game, it was on Monday Night Football, and they both scored like 50, and it
I
was
remember
like
that game.
what a back and
Yeah.
forth game. And I even remember there was a Thursday night game, when Shanahan was fresh and McVay was fresh, and they went back and forth, and
Yep.
you felt this is like the start of something. And obviously we picked the Ravens Steelers, and I've talked about the Ravens Steelers, but it's almost weird because it's Ravens Steelers for first place in the AFC North is this Sunday. It like does it have that allure of that? Yeah,
Nope.
exactly.
I
Like
didn't
it's
even know. Yeah.
right. Isn't that like
Yeah.
it's weird because typically from, oh, like 01 to like 5 years ago, when the Steelers and Ravens play for the AFC North, like it's, everyone's talking about it, oh, this is, two of the best teams, two of the class. Oh, it's incredible. The winner's probably going to go for a run in the AFC playoffs.
Mhm.
This year, it's just, even though Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers, it's Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers, but nobody cares about that. I mean, it's 2-6-6 teams. I get it. But I think that speaks to the idea of, because the Ravens have Lamar, they can't build out the roster. And then he gets hurt and they're just an awful team. The Steelers, like I said, they're stuck in mediocrity of they can't get a quarterback because they're never bad enough to pick high enough. And they never have the cap flexibility to, we have to sign Rodgers on his last legs. Or we have to sign Wilson on his last legs because we're spending cap on TJ Watt and all these things. So it's tough, and it makes it interesting that, we don't have those marquee matchups, or even the Legion of Boom versus San Fran back in the day. We don't have those sort of, the Rams and 49ers, that Thursday night game was fun, but then they followed it up with kind of a dud to a degree. So yeah, it's tough to say there's like a marquee
Like, if
game.
the Super Bowl this year is like Denver
Right.
against
The Bears. Yeah.
the Bears, like, is that gonna get more views on television than the national championship?
Yeah. I mean, I guess just because it's the Super Bowl, but I think it
Maybe,
would at least be trending
but
in the
at
way
some
of
point, maybe not. I mean, I think
right.
that the way that's trending, the way I look at it is I'm not into college football, I'm just not. I don't think the game is as schematically interesting. Maybe I'm wrong.
Right.
Um, what was I gonna say about it? I guess I just say I don't like it very much. No, it's a professional league now. The players are getting paid, so it's a competing professional league. It's not necessarily there to like complement the NFL anymore. Like this,
Right.
it could take your spot,
Yeah.
and the NFL better adjust because their shit is boring.
Right.
Their shit is boring. There's
Yeah.
no there's no explosive plays anymore. It's still a defensive league, and every team kind of sucks. That's how I feel about the NFL right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and especially, I mean, we're close to Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes being out of the playoffs. Joe Burrow's
Yep,
probably out of the playoffs.
that's not what they need.
No, that's not a good thing for the NFL when you got Daniel Jones making the playoffs over Patrick Mahomes, which I mean, hey, good for the Colts and that's awesome and everything, but it doesn't bring that like, yeah, like we said, if the Colts are playing, especially, yeah, if the Colts are playing, I don't even, Colts and Green Bay, how many people are like, what a juicy Super Bowl that is? Not many people.
At least for the last 5 or whatever, like, they had the Mahomes star power. Like, do you
Right.
hate him? Do you love him? Is he gonna win? Jalen
Yeah.
Hurts pretty famous too, but, like, this year
And right,
it could be Bo Nix, it could be Caleb Williams. I mean, he's pretty
right.
famous, but it could be some nobodies that
Was
the
and
rest
like
of the
with
league's
San
like,
Fran, it
"You
used
wouldn't
to be,
love?"
can the great team beat the great quarterback? San Fran
Yeah.
has the best roster.
Yes.
Mahomes has the best quarterback. Like
Yep.
how it was
You could
like a
bill it like that. This year, it's like, I don't know. It's gonna
who
be
even is
interesting.
the best quarterback? I guess yeah, is Stafford going to win MVP or is it going to be Drake May? Which I mean, even those, before the season, you weren't like, oh, those are the two best quarterbacks, Drake
Yeah.
May and Matthew Stafford. Yeah.
Drake May, future face of the league, maybe. Lyle Bolliard says, "Can the Niners pick players off other teams' practice squads? And if so, go get a pass rusher." They did. That's exactly what they. Cleveland Farrell was on the Chargers practice squad, and then they cut him. They were like, "We don't want to give you your weekly stipend." That's crazy to me. Jim Harbaugh served that one up for the Niners. Lyle says, trade Brandon and Mac Jones for TJ Watt since the Steelers need a quarterback and wide receiver.
That's
Yeah.
not as crazy as you may think. I'll just tell,
Right.
especially if you want to take on TJ Watt's salary, I don't think that's as crazy as you may think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that salary a little underwater? He's not quite living up to what they paid him, 40 something, 30 something?
40 something, and it keeps
Oof,
growing, and the production isn't necessarily there, and he's getting older. And they have
oof.
this, Nick Herbig, they have, who's excellent, and they have Alex Highsmith. At least I think it was one of the trusted Steelers beat reporters tweeted something that said, "Don't be shocked if the Steelers use TJ Watt to, improve the offense a little more." So hey, who knows?
BNA says wasting resources on Trent Taylor. I see why BA wouldn't trust the Niners medical staff. Who's to say he wouldn't get preference of Kittle's entourage? Is it that unusual for a player like Aiyuk, who's extremely rich, to sort of rehab with his own team away from like during June and July? I don't understand how the Niners turned this into him being unprofessional. I don't know.
No, I guess that comes down to communication would
I
be the
guess.
argument. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
honestly, like you said, we need to hear Aiyuk's side of the story at some point.
I just feel like everyone's like, well, he's not contesting it, so that means he really did it. Yeah, probably. He just wants to go to the Commanders.
Yeah,
And I think he and his agent decided that if he just shuts his mouth and
easier.
does nothing, he's going to go to the Commanders. And I wonder if the Niners really are going to cut him, because he's just going to go to Washington. And then if he's healthy, he's going to play really well and they're going to look bad. So maybe they do what they did with Jimmy. We're like, no, we're not just going to cut a player like Bray. He's too good.
Yeah,
We're trading him. And everyone's like,
sure.
what? You're going to cut him? We're not trading for him. I can see that happening.
That is, as a Steelers person, I think that too. Who like I think they're one of the two teams he would sign with. I think they're like the Steelers are like, here's like a conditional seventh. What do you mean? Yeah,
What are you talking about? Yeah,
yeah,
the Niners did that with Jimmy Garoppolo forever. We love Jimmy. No, you don't. You literally just traded everything to get rid
yeah,
of Jimmy. No. That is, I could see why you would think that, but
yeah.
that is
That's not how it
not
is.
how we
Yeah.
feel. Amazing. Oh, Alan Lopez, new member. Thank you. Joseph Ernberg, 7381 says Niners will lose Super Bowl to the Pats 42-9. That is an oddly specific prediction.
Well, we
42 to
said they
9.
were going to lose, giving up 42 points in the playoffs. We did mention that already. So that would be, I guess fans would be happy with that outcome.
Hunter Henry goes for 305 touchdowns that game. Parker, great debut. Loved having you on the show. Go check him out on 49ers on SI. Check me out as well. We're writing articles every couple of hours, man. Thank you very much for being here and watching us. Take care.
Yep.
See you,
Talk
Parker.
soon.